Hi, you're with India Post Live, India's first online news conversation web TV. I'm Ishan Russell, and India Post Live is, of course, a forum for you to come in and participate. We love to hear your voice. You can come in via your phone, via laptops, tablets, use social media, use Twitter, hashtag India Post Live to your tweets to join in this conversation, or use our Twitter handle at India Post Live. And on Facebook, we have a Facebook page. Just go there, like it, and post right now, as well as the other videos down there below for you to check out. So do comment on the wall that we have over there for you as well. And in case you want to participate in this discussion, you want or any other ones, you can come in via Skype and Google Hangout. So go ahead and do so, because today we're talking about the northeast of India and the wish list that the people over there have. Yes, the mandate has been delivered. We have a MOS home from the northeast now, and a lot of attention is expected to be focused on the northeast, and there are several things that if they talk about the northeast, it's not one homogeneous region. There are various separate issues with separate states, and we'll be trying to examine those today with Suhas Chakma. He's a northeast expert, a renowned human rights activist. Thank you very much for coming in. Also, we have Seema Gua. She's a senior journalist. Of course, she started her career reporting in the northeast in Assam during the 80s, and has ever since followed that very closely. Akridipta Chakraborty is an independent documentary photographer and an award-winning one at that. He's joining us from Tripura. R.K. Suresh is a journalist and documentary filmmaker, joining us from Imphal. Ratandeep Bhattacharjee is an agricultural scientist, joining us from Hyderabad. And Ratandeep Chaudhary, a special correspondent with the Tehelka magazine, joins us from Guwahati. And K.C. Nima will be joining us from Gangtok. He's an activist and has specialized in rehabilitation and helping people deal with drug abuse. And Thomas Lim is joining us from Shillong. He's the editor of Meghalaya Times. But Seema, I'll start with you in terms of expectations. And I'll also play out a wish list that we've prepared. We went to various Facebook pages and asked the people of the Northeast what their wish list was. And this is what they had to say. But while that wish list is playing out, Seema, what, according to you, would be the single biggest problem or the issue that would need to be addressed?
I just feel security. It's very, very important. See the kind of killings that has happened in various parts of the Northeast. I think that should stop. It's about time. I know, Modi can't do much about it because it's all state government, but there should be a very strong directive that you stop this killing. This ethnic cleansing that's going on all over, somewhere it has to stop. And somewhere people must sit down and talk. Yes, Northeast, it's a very, very complex problem. There are different identities, different cultures. People have to learn to live together. They can't just take up a gun and kill anyone just because he doesn't speak the same language. So in the Northeast, you have tribals versus non-tribals. You have Muslims versus Hindus. Every kind of ethnic tension that you can think of is there. It's time people thought of doing something.
Would you agree with Seema on that? Security is the biggest issue?
I don't think security is the issue. I think the key issue is the peace. You have problems in the Northeast as much as in any other country. And all societies where you have multi-religious, multi-ethnic groups, of course there are bound to be tensions. And these are nothing new, not in a way very specific to the Northeast. You will have all these problems all over. You tell me a country which doesn't have this kind of problems. I think what is essential, I think I have seen the wish list, but one particular issue which will actually override all these issues is the issue of peace. Now we have to look at the Northeast. Northeast has insurgencies, which that's the way we know about the APSPA insurgencies for the last 40, 50 years. And the government of India has been holding talks at least for the last 17 years with the Nagas, 10, 12 years with the other ethnic groups or insurgent groups. Now, in the last 17 years of negotiation, you have not been even able to produce a blueprint, some kind of a text where you could even show your divergence of views. I'm not even talking about the agreement. And if Modi government is serious, then of course they have to substantively, text-wise, move away from that process. There is a need to bring the peace processes to logical conclusions. You cannot have talks for the sake of talks and expecting that somebody else is very old, he is going to heaven. That very soon, naturally, he will resolve the problem. That's a stupid approach of the government of India with respect to the insurgency problems. And it is compounded by the fact that the government, which is the UPA government for the last 2 terms, they didn't have clarity as to where the talk should lead to and purpose. And it precisely because the only approach which the government of India had taken is a security approach. So you appoint all the retired bureaucrats, all the retired intelligence officials who for the rest of their life had actually spent chasing the insurgents, and now you send them as interlocutors. What is an interlocutor? Interlocutor means he is basically the messenger. So the messenger passing the message from the insurgent groups to the government of India, and in between there are lots of interlocutors who have actually mugged up the whole system because they wanted to remain interlocutors for the rest of their life till they go to the graves. So if Modi government is serious, you have to appoint facilitators, not mediators. Government of India doesn't accept mediators. So you need facilitators who will facilitate the peace process in a manner that they lead to substantive conclusions. And once you resolve that, then the other wish list can come true. Now, if you say, for example, want to repeal the AFSPA, of course, as a human rights activist, we do want it. But you cannot discount the security factor. But then again, when there are no security issues, there also you have AFSPA. So you want educational institutions, but if you have insurgency, if the teachers cannot feel secure, doctors do not feel secure, like in areas like Kokrajhar, you know, what's the point of having more hospital and all the wish list, all this wish list, to a large extent, depends on the success of the peace processes.
And that's so you think that peace has to come first rather than a development agenda or the development?
Yeah, but I wanted to ask you something. This NSCN, how do you solve it? Now they are talking about Nagaland. They want areas from all this. How do you convince people to give? The states, you know how they are. They don't want to give even a little inch of territory. So about contiguous Naga areas, that is one way of peace. So that is the sticking point. So how would you really, what is the solution, what is the way forward there? That you want all Naga areas to come under a greater Nagaland.
I do not think even the leadership of the NSCN believes in that.
But they talked about it when they were here.
Surely, even
that's the maximalist position. Yeah.
You always start with a maximum position. Then, of course, you have to have the interlocutors have to have the flexibility. Now, if you are going to in each talks only discuss ceasefire violations, it makes no sense. And I would say, in fact, ceasefires have been used for the groups to consolidate and go and extort openly because you cannot arrest them. So, which was illegal earlier, you have done it. And last 20 years of time, you basically have in a way consolidated the armed groups. Maybe they have become physically fat, but on the other hand, you actually have allowed them. So what the NSCN wants, that's a different issue. It's for the government of India's interlocutor to have or must have the ability to connect to the people and to build a consensus. NSCN is
perhaps interlocutors who really even enjoy the trust of the people. Or, yes, and,
not just retired bureaucrats.
I just want to get in voices from the Northeast itself. Ratandeep Chaudhary is a correspondent, a special correspondent with the Tehelka. He's extensively covered the region. And Ratandeep, I mean, there are different problems in different states. But as far as the younger voter, the younger citizen of Northeastern India, what are they thinking? Are they thinking about the conventional conflicts and trying to resolve them? Are they thinking about more industry, jobs, development? What does the young voter in the Northeast want?
Well, Ishan, during the elections, we have been interacting with a lot of young voters in the run-up to the elections. And we could feel that, for even a young friend of mine from Nagaland, for him now Naga insurgency really doesn't matter. And what is the fallout of the Naga peace process, that also perhaps doesn't matter for him. So while I would take this issue of peace as the biggest prerequisite of Northeast, it is in fact. But perhaps now time has come where the Modi government needs to look out for a new strategy, where there should be one strategy which looks at how peace and ethnic conflict can be negotiated, can be taken care of, how the peace processes can be brought to a logical conclusion, how the ethnic tension and the ethnic cleansing and the ethnic divide can be reduced. That is one part of it. And And there is another part of it, while that is taken care of, how do you meet up the aspiration of the younger loss? How do you meet up the aspiration of these people who are after their formal initial education till class 10, till class 12, till the college level, have to move out of this part of the country for looking out for jobs, structure in terms of scopes, and in terms of giving them scope in terms of entrepreneurship, so that this brain drain can be stopped. That is one important factor which the younger generation is looking forward to Modi. If you look at the election results in Northeast, you see in Assam there are 14 seats. Out of 14 seats, 7 seats have gone to the BJP. BJP has also won 1 seat in Arunachal Pradesh. Their vote shares have gone up in other states. This is precisely because, like rest of the country, a lot of young voters in the Northeast, like what is called the mainland Indian, the same psyche has voted for Modi. And that's where Modi has to respond to them. Modi has to now come up with a policy for Northeast where he has to perhaps argument Ministry of Home Affairs, which looks at these peace processes and the issues of law and order, insurgency, counter-insurgency, and also departments like the donor. There has to be a common platform where the MHA, the donor, and the respective state government, along with the civil society, can perhaps come and form a new policy. I mean, I might be sounding very hypothetical, but that's what a common young man would like from Northeast. Ishan.
All right, fair enough. Clarity and moving forward, Pano Paso joins us from New Delhi. He's a PhD research scholar and is originally from Sikkim. Paso, what would your big thing, one thing be for your state? If you think about Sikkim, what would be the one thing that would come to mind in terms of a wish list for the new government?
Well, you see, I don't think I could point out specifically one thing, but there is multiple vectors that are now, acting simultaneously. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So now, when we look at the new government's policies towards the Northeast and particularly Sikkim, we are taking forward the Look East policy that was initiated by Prime Minister I.K. Gujarat. And when we look at, when we specifically see Look East policy, it's very Delhi-centric, you see. And when we say Look East, it basically means Delhi is looking towards the east. And now it's going to be very, very Delhi-centric. It's going to be very interest-based, Delhi interest-based, moves over there. And now what I think is that to balance this equation, we need also feedbacks from Sikkim, from the local population, which I think has been somehow overridden by, just looking towards development and infrastructure coming in, hydropower projects that are now, just dotted along the topography of a landscape. Well, now the wish list that would come is that, if things could be looked at more from the local perspective, to take local grievances, because it would be, the mobilization of the large industries into the northeastern region, and there is a lot of skepticism on the resources being extracted and then being taken back to the mainland. Now, who is it benefiting? Right, they would bring development, but with the extraction of resources, with infrastructural development, where there are financial agencies, particularly the private actors, they would want to reap profits and benefits. So I think there needs to be more of feedback. It's not only look east, but also if you see from the northeastern perspective, it would be look west, or the take west. I think that would.
Yes, interesting. I mean, the fact just the nomenclature can do so much.
But the government of India's look-is policy is not about Northeast India. Government of India's look-is policy is engagement with the ASEAN to counter the Chinese and possibly make alliances with Myanmar, and wherein possibly Northeast India figures as the corridor. So India's look-is policy is basically the trade engagement agreements and etc. Northeast India even doesn't figure into it. So I think when if people understand the look-is policy is meant for the Northeast, sorry, that's not what's the policy of the government of India. And there is no look-is policy per se.
What do you make of General V.K. Singh as he's the donor minister, and I mean you've said security is something that would be of primary concern and peace. So what would you make of the general as the minister?
Well, I think it sends an extremely wrong signal. All the time you have the ministers, if you have a minister in charge of Northeast, the donor ministry who is from an army background, obviously his approach towards the Northeast would be security oriented. And it has been a constant complaint that all the governors who have been appointed in the Northeast, they are either from the intelligence agencies or the army background. It doesn't help. I think the romanticism with the insurgency has ended in the Northeast. They are as much part of the democratization process in the mainland as the rest of the country. So the insurgent groups in Northeast no longer pose any threats whatsoever. I mean, I think Ratnadeep was very clear. So the government of India needs to take that fact into account and develop engagement. I will not even say policy, develop engagement, because each problem will be different from the others. Naga problem, as Seema says, is different. Bodo problem is completely different. You have so many actors.
No, but I want to ask you a little thing about this. These little, people don't have jobs. Youth coming out of school and all, when they don't have jobs, the easiest way to make money in many areas of the Northeast is to take a gun. Isn't it? Some of them in Garo Hills and all, Shillong. I don't know, what are they complaining about? I just don't understand.
The other thing that's
because it's an easy way to get money.
Is the drugs, and the drugs are a concern because it's as far as human development. And I want to get in a voice from Sikkim who's worked on, from Gangtok, Sikkim, Gangtok and Sikkim, who's worked on this particular area is K.C. Nima. And Nima, what would you say as far as the drug problem is concerned? It figures in the people's wish list also that as far as that is concerned, it is an issue that is not really being tackled or talked about.
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you for getting me on. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, yes. A little while ago, I was talking to a friend, a PhD in Delhi, right? And he said, it would be better to hear it from a local. And yeah, exactly, yeah. I'm a local here, and yes, my wish list first definitely would be about drugs. The reason why I'm saying drugs is because we have got an act here. It's called Sikkim Anti-Drug Act, which was enacted in 2006. And this act, simply criminalizes or simply sues those people into drugs. Like what it says, actually the whole act is quite okay, but there are a few points which is not okay at all. What it says is the first point that I personally oppose or feel should be amended is when somebody gets caught with a drug, that person in that act says should be sent for detoxification followed by rehabilitation. And in reality, what's happening is they are caught, they're sent to a lockup, and the next day they're sent to jail. The first thing. And the second thing, what the act says is if a government employee is caught with the substance, then that government employee will be charged about 20,000 fine, and he could be terminated from the job as well. And yeah, that's one of the things. And the other part is, again, if a student is caught with the drugs, then he will be deprived of all the facilities that the government...
So are you saying this act is being misused?
No, not misused. It contradicts, it is not at all okay. The act says one thing, and in reality, something else is being followed. So we have been voicing a lot. We have met with a lot of people, but something is not being done. So my wish list would be with the new government, with the Modi government, is to look into this.
Absolutely. Suhas also wanted to come in, Nima. Just a second here.
No, I think we have to understand that you cannot expect anything and everything from the central government. There is something called the state government. Now, I mean, there are certain issues where central government may have overbearing presence. That's with respect to security, because the India's security is at stake. But when it comes to governance, whether it's the drug problem or some other problem, at the end of the day, it's a local government problem. You know, you have an elected state government. So, you know, if Sikkim, there's a problem with the drug problem, of course, you have the state government which has been elected for time and again. You have the same problem, the same system in, Mizoram. You have this elected government in Tripura. There are certain things which the state government will have to do. What the central government do is basically in areas which effectively fall within their domains, like the security, deployment of the paramilitary forces, or, you know, overriding policy with respect to engagement with Myanmar, Bangladesh, giving funds to the central funds, specific funds to the state. That's the area of the Modi government. Modi government is not going to come back and resolve problem which is run by the Congress government in Assam or CPM government in Tripura. We have to realize that it's a federal state.
All right, but all right, let's get any other point you would want to make, Nima, before we move ahead? Any other point on your wish list from a central perspective?
Yes, definitely. Like since I was told to
just move the camera a little away from your face and we'll right in your ear. Go ahead. Yeah.
I was asked to talk about my wish list, right?
Yeah. Go ahead.
That's what I'm doing. Sikkim is a very small state. We have no security problems. We have no security problems. Yeah. And I was asked to tell about my wish list. So that's one of my wish lists. I do know central government doesn't take care of all those stuff. The state government does it. But since I was asked to speak my wish list,
yes,
so that's
fair enough. Go ahead. It's surely a problem that concerns the people, and Narendra Modi as Prime Minister should be aware that if drugs are a problem and are increasingly corrupting the youth, then certainly action should be taken. At least the state government be implored to do so. But any other thing on your wish list as far as the state?
Yes, and another wish list is about 17.
We seem to have lost that connection with Nima out there for a bit. I want to go across to Tripura also. We have with, or we seem to have lost that connection as well. So we'll just, in fact, yes, there is Ratandeep. There's Ratandeep Bhattacharjee. He's an agricultural scientist, and he's also joining us. Thanks very much for coming in, Ratandeep. If you can hear me, I just wanted to know your wish list and your expectations. Oh, okay. So we seem to have lost a bit of a connection problem over there. We're experiencing a bit of a technical difficulty, as they say in conventional TV, but we'll fix that, right? But Seema, the kind of issues that we're talking about are very vexed issues in the sense they're very
complicated, intricate.
But
yes.
Is there an understanding in mainland India, as it was being called, in Delhi as of the Northeast, of the problems and the new government, does it have enough people who understand what should be done or what could be done?
I don't know really. I really don't know. I hope they have. I'm sure they will. I mean, after all, the BJP has done well. They must have talked to people. You know, they will be getting feedback from the party and then also the bureaucrats. But I mean, I don't know what sort of feedback they get from bureaucrats. But my thing is, Northeast, and I'm very surprised that a lot of people are very confused about India's Look East policy, which basically, as he explains, it is to go a bridge to ASEAN. But then this is one way where the Northeast can also gain. And we must make use of that opportunity. I feel that very strongly. So I don't know why there is so much suspicion of this. Maybe he can explain. I don't know. Because there is a lot of suspicion.
I think partly the suspicion arises because I think people are not ready for the kind of development which will take place. In the sense that if you have, for example, corridors to Myanmar, it would require building roads to Mizoram. And Mizoram has its own inner line permit where outsiders require permission to go. Now, once you open up the whole systems, how do you deal with the whole even movement of the trucks? You know, I mean, if you have about 1,000 trucks,
But Manipur it will be.
No, Manipur it will matter,
off,
but
yeah.
you know, I mean, certain areas you have to go to Myanmar, certain areas, Manipur, certain areas with Mizoram, and the whole inertia, if the development brings, if the local people are not ready to tap into it, then of course,
Don't you think they should be ready by now? I mean, how much can we wait
desire,
like this?
is there a want? I mean, or is it a time warp that often
I
people are
just
caught in?
feel that they need to break out of it.
This region has been kept isolated by the British because most of the areas which we are in the northeast today and which form separate state, under the British 1935 Act, they were considered as the fully excluded areas where the British had no role whatsoever. Then once the Government of India took over, the Government of India itself kept this area absolutely isolated. And until a year and a half back, even you required special permission from the Ministry of Home Affairs to visit many of these states under the restricted area permit. So it's not the people who are not ready. People have been denied the opportunity even to interact with the mainland. And in fact, the interaction with the mainland India has taken place only in the last 10, 15 years because of the television. Because when I came to study here, everybody thought I was a Nepali, not from the northeast. And lots of violence which are going on against the people in the northeast. It's not by educated people. It's people who had no sense or idea about the geography, what constitutes northeast India. It's only the television channel which are bridging the gap, which was not able to fill up or done by the government of India. So it's not a question of how long people will wait. You have to see that people have been kept isolated because of the security purpose. Say, for example, one of the key concerns of the government of India for this restricted area permit is not to allow any Westerners so that they cannot go and convert people. But for God's sake, people who have been converted into Christianity in this period, if they were all at all to convert, they would have done during the British period. And people who converted into Christianity were mainly people who had their own local religions. Anybody who had a formal religion, whether the Chakmas, Tripuris, Meiteis, Ravas, Bodos, they didn't convert. But nobody in the Home Ministry would understand that. And that's one of the main problems, because you have kept it isolated, you have not increased the interaction.
Their own understanding perhaps
So
very
there is no
limited.
understanding. The only understanding is how many paramilitary forces you require, how many security forces you require. And I tell you, some of the interlocutors, when they go for discussion, what's the discussion? Who is funding you? Where did you get the arms? Is Bangladesh behind you? Is the ISI behind you? You are trying to extract information, you are not talking about the substance, and that's why it doesn't move anywhere. And that's why in the beginning I said, of course, Northeast requires development. See, in Delhi, at least 5% of the population in the BPO sector are from the Northeast.
Yes.
Yeah? So these people, instead of coming to Delhi, if the government of India creates two things, give uninterrupted power supply and high-speed internet, why can't you create that facility at least in Guwahati? But there is no vision either from the central government or from the state government.
All right,
So it's mutual. It's not only the central government. It's state government also lacking ideas. I mean, when did you hear a chief minister of the Northeast is speaking about need for creating job in the
All right,
state?
so the local politics has been confined to often a few families and has been confined to a few particular issues. Ratandeep Bhattacharya joins us from Hyderabad. Ratandeep, go ahead.
To start about jobs and then availability of opportunities in Northeast. As for me personally, after graduation and post-graduation from NEHU, I moved out of the Northeast just because there weren't any jobs available, and then not even industrial training programs and stuff, so that they make you industrial efficient and things. To start with, the issue of internet and network connectivity that Sir has raised is very important, because except BSNL network and stuff like that, in most of the parts of Northeast, you don't get any other network. Forget high-speed internets. So to start with development front, and then rail connectivity, road connectivity issues, I think Modi government has tasked on it to complete the pending role in network connectivity. And also, as an agriculturist, I would like to emphasize on issues like irrigation canals, water harvesting, and stuff, because we have seen over the period of years, due to environmental degradation and issues like that, most of the parts of Sora and Cherrapunji are ones which were like plenty of water. They are now, because of lack of water harvesting, and then there are no place water well gets accumulated and it just runs off. And in plains, in Assam plains, especially in Sibsagar, Jorhat, and Dibrugarh districts, we have seen depletion of water ground level, and then a continuous drought-like situation prevailing over since last 3-4 years.
All right.
So the need of the hour is like, even though many governments came and then worked on ICR and institutes like that, heavily funded projects in Northeast, there have been, because I was in ICR for a couple of years, and then what I thought that people in Delhi, they have that, the funding agency, Wahamad Jao attitude that once you submit the money, 10,000 crores of money, and then 500,000 crores of money for whole implementation, there is no review or tracking of anything like that. So,
The corruption
now that-
perhaps is also a big issue over there. Corruption?
Absolutely.
All right, Ratandeep, you also wanted to make a point. Ratandeep Chaudhary from Guwahati. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, Ishant, basically coming very straight to the point what Ratandeep Bhattacharya and Subhash Chakma has been making is the fact that now this is the time where there are issues which can be solved. Subhash has made a very important point of connectivity in terms of internet and power supply. Now you see, Northeast is seen as the powerhouse of the country with a capacity of what the Central Electricity Authority says as 60,000 megawatt. But the fact remains is that Arunachal government has signed over 160 MOUs and none of the projects are seeing day of light. It's because there are resistance movement, there are concerns about the environmental concerns, Northeast being a very eco-sensitive region. But the fact is that it's not like that people of Northeast don't want the power sector to be developed. But look at how the UPA government and the Arunachal government treated the entire issue. They spoke about a hydropower policy and they allowed signing MOUs with people who were tour operators. They didn't have any previous expertise in terms of building dams. And what happens? People become resistive. People there are doubts which come in their mind, and a project which was doable, that 2,000 megawatt Lower Subansiri project, is now stuck in limbo for the last 2 years, and this project is done by NHPC, which is the biggest government agency in terms of when it comes to hydropower in our country. So look at the way central government and the state government has mismanaged this entire scope of tapping hydropower out of Northeast, and trying to not only solve the power crisis within the region, but also perhaps would have aided in terms of solving power crisis across the country. And had center gone with the proper purpose, perhaps the only purpose was to mint money. The Arunachal government took upfront premiums from all these private companies worth 1,300 crores, huge money. Has there been a proper investigation into where those money came? So, I just wanted to make a point that yes, there is scope where I think center should look with a new strategy. Gone are the days where you give special packages, reservation. Northeast doesn't require special packages anymore, doesn't require reservation. That's my personal opinion. What Northeast require is a long-term, holistic approach in terms of policy, where you make a policy. If you're talking about tapping of 60,000 megawatt of power from Northeast, break it into pieces, break it into phases. Try to make feasible projects. You have thousands of crores of money already lost on Lower Subansiri, and it has not seen the day of light. So definitely all these issues, it's not only about numbers that I have given 100,000 crores so much for the development.
Right, you just can't throw money at a problem and wish it away.
They understand,
that's been
and
the approach.
they kind of feel for the region. That's very
Everyone
important.
makes money like that.
Pazo, you wanted to come in quickly. Go ahead.
Yeah, Ratnadeep, I just want to respond to what you were saying. You said that Delhi needs to take a holistic perspective on the Northeast, which I don't think I would agree with you on this, because every state has very characteristic of its culture, of its people, of its ethos, and clubbing it together as Northeast itself would be very problematic. I mean, it's a very complicated, society over there, and every society, I think, over there is, is challenged with different areas that in Sikkim we are facing with issues like drug abuse, suicides. We have the highest rate of suicide. We do not have problems of insurgency. So, taking a holistic perspective on this would be like we're just sweeping and kind of simplifying a particular approach, which I think is which would probably complicate things in the future.
All right, Ratnadev, respond. You wanted to come back.
No, I take this completely, that calling this entire landmass as Northeast and trying to look at as single unit is a wrong move. But given the fact that this wrong move is on for so many years, when I'm talking about holistic approach is in terms of issues. When we talk about hydropower, definitely that there are some issues, there are some ground zero level issues which are different in terms of Arunachal Pradesh and Sikkim. But when you look at, I'm talking about how New Delhi has approached. New Delhi's approach towards Sikkim and Arunachal was same. So it's the biggest challenge perhaps for Northeast is this entire coinage of Northeast. These are seven different states with 7 different chief ministers, 7 different.
Right. I just want to go across to Imphal also, because we are joined by R.K. Suresh. He joins us on the phone line. He's a journalist and documentary filmmaker. Suresh, the kind of responses that we've been getting from our experts over here certainly seem to be suggesting that a more holistic approach, a more approach driven towards peace and resolution of long-standing issues is what is really imperative upon the central government to at least focus on these issues. Would you concur? Suresh, can you hear me?
You can't have connections.
All right, so the internet connectivity and telephone connectivity there, as you see, it's a testament. It is a problem. All right, so final comments I'll take from all of you. Suhas, the one thing that you pointed out, the interlocutors, I think that's the immediate first step that can be done. But the kind of issue that Ratnadev raised about just throwing money at a problem and wishing things away, has that been the approach, and do you see that changing now?
I would say that I think it might change with the new government. At least there is a fresh air in terms of the way they have been looking at issues. So I think I completely agree that what the approach of the central government has been basically throw away money and you wish that the insurgency problems will disappear. I think that was useful at some point of time when insurgency has its own support and romanticism. Yeah, lots of people. You have to recognize one fact, that all these insurgent groups at some point of time had the mass support of the population out there. So at that point of time, when you try to create your own support base, obviously you have to throw out lots of money. So in that sense, I would say it was useful. Now, 60 years down the line, and almost 40 years after the Naga insurgency, people are tired of that, and people want to become as much part of the development of India or the story of development of India as anywhere else. So that change has taken place, but in the last 10 years it has not taken place. So they have to do away with it. And I think the final thing which I wanted to say is that I think the central government should realize that the peace processes, the success of the peace processes is the prerequisite to development initiative in that regions, and for that they need to come up with people from the northeastern region who could understand the issues, with whom people could relate to. I am actually surprised why the government of India has not used the services of, say, former Chief Minister of Mizoram, Joramthanga. He himself was the Chief Minister. Give him certain brief, you tell him. He tried to suss out the Naga leadership and find a solution, rather than having some bureaucrat officials, the only credential that they have been targeting the insurgents or have served there. So the first thing is they have to do that you have to bring people from the region who understand the issues and who share the telepathy to work out the details. It's possible. And of course, if you do not agree with it as the Ministry of Home Affairs, you can say, sorry, we do not agree, there is no agreement.
But at least it's forward moving.
Yeah, you have to change from the people who are seeking post-retirement jobs. So that's one issue. Seriously, all interlocutors are basically seeking post-retirement
All right, so that is perhaps the first step that the Modi government can take.
The second step, which, yes, of course, people need powers, people need infrastructure development. The whole concept of tribals, whether in northeast or mainland India, do not want development, that's a misnomer. It's only some people who believe in that, who want to romanticize that. The tribals also want as much development, whether in northeast or in mainland India. I think the problem occurs where you do not want to share the benefits of the profit. And for a tribal to survive, so instead of giving one go that you give 500,000, maybe you have to link in such a manner that the family who would be giving away his or her land feels confident that there is a consistent resource sharing or profit sharing. Right. Unless that happens, people usually suddenly they are dispossessed, they got the money and they do not know what to do. And biggest problem in this is the state governments, the politicians, either in Northeast India or Orissa, they are becoming basically the property dealers. I'll give you one example. The biggest problem...
At least politicians are common everywhere.
Yes. They are also... Now, in Orissa, when the Kalinganagar massacre took place in 2006, the state government issued emergency orders, acquired the land under the Emergency Act, and paid 35,000 rupees as compensation per family, per acre. When the state government sold the same land to the Tatas, they sold it at 4,75,000. Now I swear, if Tatas gave 4,75,000 to the Adivasis, they would have sold it. Majority would have sold it. Now you could see the benefit, the profit margin. The profit margin of 4.5 lakhs was kept by the state government. Why does the state need to exercise its sovereign power to take away the land from the individuals, its own citizen, and sell it at a higher price to the companies? You make them part of the whole development history. Right. They will do it. It doesn't matter whether you want to have 165 dams or 65 dams. People have to be
part of that process.
No, you have to share the profit. It's as simple as
I think stakeholders in development make everybody a stakeholder.
If you do that, then I think
Artist Suresh has finally joined us, and we're wrapping up this show. Suresh, thank you very much for coming, and quickly your comments as far as anything in particular on your wish list from Manipur.
Actually, I'm very sorry because I've been trying to contact actually join the video chat, but the platform I didn't have hear the overall discussion. So at this point, it's hard to make a clear point out here. But then actually, if it's concerns about the Narendra Modi's government, I think people are from Manipur, and I think in most part of the tribal state in the northeast extreme, I think he has given us a new, perspective to look on how, we can expect things, because, some of the, if not all of them, some of the policies that he has, drafted or he is trying to implement, it actually has a very practical, sounding, practical nature in it. And say, for example, yesterday itself, I was looking at one of his comments about how we approach very sort of a practical, aggressive way to compete with China. That's what we should be looking forward to, because India, as far as right now is concerned, actually every country in the world has realized that it's a superpower. But we have been all the time, all this time we have been trying to look at being the second thing, not the first thing, not the one who wants to pioneer anything. But I think that sort of Narendra Modi has given us that we want to be number one, and that's what we are looking forward, because in the Northeast, actually I'm trying to relate the whole thing, my previous comment with the Northeast itself. I'm happy that I cannot join the video chat. In other words, because it's been 2 days that the 3G mobile service network
there are fair enough. I'll leave it to that, Suresh, right now. We'll chat about the internet connectivity. I think that calls for a whole other discussion as far as broadband connectivity in the Northeast is concerned. Thanks very much for coming in, Suresh. Also, both the Ratandis, Bhattacharya and Chaudhary, thank you very much for coming in. Panupazo, thanks very much for joining us from Delhi. And Seema, final word to you as far as the Northeast is concerned. Do you see a substantial change happening over the next 5 years, or do you see much of the same problem still remaining?
No, can I say something else?
Yeah.
I just feel like saying this. We in the Northeast have this habit of whining always. We didn't do this government, do something yourself, demand it from the government and get it. We really whine a lot. And, we should demand things from the government and get it. We can't just go on, oh, Northeast, nobody looks at us, they are doing this, they are doing that, Northeast stories are not carried. I mean, stop whining. It's time you stopped whining and started.
All right, so take what you deserve is on
Absolutely.
another strong note. We'll wrap this up. Thank you very much, Nima,
I have
also for
this-
coming in. Thank you very much, Suhasha Kumar. It was a pleasure having you in the studio, and Seema Goa as always. Thank you very much for coming into our studio. Well, that was a little presentation on the wish list of the northeast of India. If you're from a particular state and have a wish list, well, send it to us. We'll surely put it out when we're talking about that particular state. But this was about the northeast of India. Do write into us and tell us what you think. You can tweet, use Facebook, use social media, use any of the other technology platforms that you have. But do get in touch. Thanks so much for watching.